So last week it was announced that season 2 of House of the Dragon is going to have fewer episodes than House of the Dragon season 1. Season 1 had 10 episodes, and season 2 is apparently going to have 8 episodes. I saw a lot of people on YouTube and Twitter, but especially Twitter, decrying this as potentially a sign that House of the Dragon is already dead in the water, declining the same way that Game of Thrones did. However, I think that that's failing to take into account the complexity of the decline of Game of Thrones and the number of issues that went into that actually happening. I think that the episode count decreasing in the last 2 seasons did very much continue to hurt it as well, but I don't think it was the single reason for the decline of that show. I think, in terms of the number of episodes in House of the Dragon, it's actually a rather complex issue that I think there are positive and negative sides to. And today I'm going to examine both those positive and negative sides and give my opinion on how this season is going to go as a whole, how it seems to be shaping up. And yeah, I love talking about House of the Dragon, so I was excited to have a little bit more news to talk about, as it's been a minute since I've talked about this show, and it's kind of what gave me my start on the platform. So if you enjoyed this video, be sure to leave a like, subscribe, all that, and let's jump into my thoughts on this 8-episode season 2. So my initial thought at seeing this announcement was disappointment. I really like this show, and I'd like to see as much of it as possible. I want as many episodes as I could possibly get. And 10 episodes seem like already it could be too little. However, now that I think about it a little more, 8 could very much fit the pace of the story a bit better. This very much contrasts some opinions that I've heard online, particularly regarding the frantic pacing of Season 1. However, that fails to consider the structure of Season 1 and that will likely occur in Season 2. Season 1 spans well over 20 years of history and conflict and drama, and it's so packed into its 10 episodes that often there are these massive time skips both within individual episodes and between different episodes. So I think that overall the shift from that massive temporal scale that Season 1 has to a more kind of Game of Thrones style grounded actual conflict that is just temporally in one place that is going to be going forward linearly, if I could say that word, as time tends to do in our own world. And I do think that the issue of the pacing, at least as brought about in season 1, will not be nearly as much of an issue in season 2. So that is one thing that I'm not particularly worried about in terms of shortening the number of episodes for the second season. This goes hand in hand with another announcement that came alongside this that I saw a fair few people kind of disregarding as well. They said that they're quite close to greenlighting a third season as well, which I think is fantastic news. They went into season 1 of House of the Dragon not knowing if it was going to be a hit or not, if anybody would watch it, if anybody would like it, if it would even be good. HBO was kind of flying blind on the quality and the fan reception, so overall it did seem to come as somewhat of a surprise that it did as well as it did. However, given the fact that it has been this massive success, it seems quite likely that there's going to be a third season immediately following the second. And that means that hopefully, the filming of season 3 is going to come very soon after the filming of season 2. As the whole issue that is currently happening is that season 1 was filmed a long time ago. I think it was 2 or 3 years at this point. I think it was mid-quarantine. Whereas season 3 is, as I'm recording this, going to start a bit later this month. I think it's supposed to be mid to late April. So hopefully the issue of the filming being so far away between the first and second seasons will be resolved as we go into the second and third seasons, as they do have a roadmap ahead of them and a plan laid out as to what exactly they want to do with the third season and how that's going to take shape. George Martin himself has said that he's shooting for 4 seasons of House of the Dragon, and Ryan Condal is saying that he is deciding between 3 and 4 seasons. With this structure in mind, and having the text of the Dance of the Dragons before us with fire and blood, it does seem like seasons being shorter, but there being more seasons, is a good way to approach this conflict. Because my thought is, each season is going to have its own given budget and set of resources and actors and all of this complicated TV making stuff that I really don't know all that much about because I'm a teacher. But anyway, I think that overall, devoting more budget to these individual episodes rather than trying to stretch out a season a bit longer could be beneficial in the long run. And what's more, I think that the pacing of the Dance of the Dragons as a conflict does do a lot better if you end up breaking it up into 4 seasons of 8 episodes than 4 seasons of 10 episodes. Though I guess the first season is 10 episodes no matter what. Warning, warning, this next section is going to contain spoilers. Beware. If you haven't read Fire and Blood, steer clear of this next section. There's a timestamp in the description to the next section that does not have spoilers, so be sure to just jump ahead, keep watching the video, just skip on past this section If you're kind of half interested like I am, I tend to actually like hearing spoilers, but that's a can of worms for another psychological day. Anyway, I'm just going to name the events. I'm not going to go into exactly what happens. So if you want to stick around for that, that would make sense as well. So yeah, I leave it up to you. Personally, I think that 8 episodes for season 2 is a great choice. I think that the structure of the season will fit very well and very neatly into 8 episodes. Most notably, I think the early episodes are going to be mostly Jace's journey going north, efforts diplomatically on the side of the Blacks and the Greens, the Blacks taking Harrenhal, the Greens sending out envoys to Dorne, to the Triarchy, in order to try to get any allies possible, and really getting to see Otto attempt to politic this, but really not do the best. And overall, I think that the mid-season, or maybe even late mid-season, would be Rook's Rest. That battle there could be quite a climactic event, and I'd be excited to see it. And it does very much seem like something that should happen fairly early on or towards the middle of season 2. As Dragon Seeds happening immediately after it could also be quite important and quite fun to see, frankly. I do think that Dragon Seeds could very much happen before Rook's Rest, but then at that point, gets into some logistical inconsistency issues, as there's not really a point to just one person going to Rook's Rest. I'm not going to spoil it beyond that. But if there's more dragon riders, if more people have claimed these dragons, this one person going alone doesn't really make a ton of sense in the entire show canon. I also think that with this shorter episode count, they could reshuffle some events to make a much better paced and more dynamic story. Specifically, I think one event should be relocated. I think that season 2 should end with Rhaenyra taking King's Landing. I don't think that's a new or controversial idea. I think many people think this. But I also think that it's just such a good moment that will be very much a positive moment to end the season on, which is rare and something people are going to want to hold on to going into the future seasons of this show. And that being said, I do think that we'll probably have to skip one battle. And this has already been mentioned in the press release with the cut down to 8 episodes. They state that one battle is cut and moved from the second season to the third season. And I think that this battle is the Battle of the Gullet. The Battle of the Gullet is very important and results in the death of one very major character, and I do think it would very much benefit the show to keep this character alive until season 3, to allow them to be alive when Rhaenyra keeps King's Landing, or takes King's Landing, excuse me. And I think that having this character there would greatly benefit both Rhaenyra's arc and this character's arc. As one of my big issues with Fire and Blood is that this character dies so early, because it's just such a case of wasted potential and just really death for death's sake, not even by logical cause and effect, as Martin tends to do. So, in terms of comparing this issue to Game of Thrones and figuring out how it relates and if these two problems are correlated, I really don't think they are. I think that Game of Thrones had 3 main problems. Firstly, the estrangement of David and Dan from George R. R. Martin could be very much a factor in the decline of the show, as pretty much as soon as he stops having so much input on the show around season 5, it immediately starts to go off the tracks. Additionally, we know that David and Dan were rushing probably to get to their Star War, and they weren't able to really realize all of these plots that should have been. They cut it short just for the sake of getting done with it, and they weren't really willing to lean into the fantasy elements of the story, something that is much more essential and already integrated into House of the Dragon, rather than being something that they were able to kind of circumvent in Game of Thrones. And additionally, the final issue is cutting source material and just not having full source material to work from. And I think that this is very much not an issue in terms of Fire and Blood. Fire and Blood is a finished text for the Dance of the Dragons, and I think they've already shown a great job at adding stuff to the text that makes it more meaningful and makes the character drama have that much more weight and have the conflict really have more dimension to it. And I think they've done a great job with all 3 of these things so far. Martin is still on board. They're very clearly not rushing. They're taking their time with the second season, clearly, because it's not going to come out until summer 2024. And they very much have a finished text to work from. So overall, I don't think this is terrible news. I think that it's something that, yes, is kind of disappointing. I do wish it were a longer season just to have more show to watch. But I don't think it's the end of the world, nor do I think it means the end of House of the Dragon as a good show. So, what do you think of this issue? I've heard a wide range of opinions, and I'd love to hear your thoughts as well. Be sure to leave your comment below. Let me know what you think. While you're down there, like, subscribe, all that typical YouTube stuff. I'll have more videos coming out in the near future. This weekend, it'll be my 100th video, which is kind of a fun milestone. Though about half those videos are D&D stuff, but it's still a cool milestone nonetheless. And yeah, thank you all for bearing with me through this news cycle and through this kind of strange bonus video that I've just thrown together here. So yeah, thank you all for watching. I hope you have a good one. I'll see you soon.